And we are live. Awesome. So, Cor, today we're going to talk about preparing business knowledge for the AI era. Before I hand over to our special guest of today, I just want to introduce quickly ourselves for the ones who don't know who we are. So, we are 9x. You can find us at go9x.com. We are building your one-stop shop to learn AI and automation. And we believe that AI and automation are the most important skills to learn right now as a business professional. And we are on a mission to bring you these skills on a silver platter. So for this, we offer courses, company workshop, live workshop like this one, all the way down to custom programs for larger companies. Now, that is who we are and what we do. But in terms of how we do it, basically, we focus on delivering courses. We have 3 courses, one which is in the making, the AI starter, and we have the AI operator, which was freshly released, and the AI builder. The good news is that this summer is the summer of AI. So it's a couple of months of promotions. So during the summer, we'll be running a discount on our AI operator course, which is basically where you will learn how to become productive with AI at work. This is really to show you the tips and tricks of using AI as a copilot, how to use an LLM, how to write a good prompt, and how to find the good use cases for using LLMs at work. And if you really want to get a bit more advanced or more comprehensive programs, the AI Builder is where you learn how to automate with AI, building AI-powered automation and AI agent. I'm not sure I can promise that by the end of the AI Builder, you are as proficient as a Core, but you'll be able to do a few things. If you're interested in the kind of topics that we are presenting during these live sessions, you can find the recording on our YouTube channel along with other videos. We're trying to go big on YouTube this year, so feel free to check out, give us a little follow. That would be lovely, and you'll be able to stay in touch with the last AI news. Finally, what are the purposes of this workshop besides a couple of shameless advertorials? First, what we want you to learn today is the importance of AI knowledge integration. I think the example that Cor will show us will make it clear why leveraging knowledge inside of AI work streams is important. We will see how to leverage coding tools for knowledge work. I think that's a first. At least it's for me the first time I saw anyone using GitHub and code a cloud this way. So pretty excited to have Cor show you what he has up his sleeve. And finally, we want you to learn how AI systems can learn and improve from your work. That being said, I'm going to hand over the mic to the man of the day, Cor. Little funny story. I met Cor on the forum from Integromat, I think 7 years ago when I was starting my journey on automation. So really happy that we finally got to meet each other at the Builders Club conference last month, and super happy to have you on. Maybe, Cor, can you take it away and start maybe by a little introduction of yourself?
Thank you. Thank you everybody for being patient. It's been a day. I'm dialing in from a small town called George in the southern tip of South Africa. As you can see, it's winter over here. I'm sat inside in my winter coat. But that hasn't been the worst part of my day. Core, I dial in from a company called Pretty Simple. We've been in the automation and low-code space. A lot of things happen by accident, but we've been in this space since, for 10 years. In October, we'll be 10. Another interesting story is that we pivoted from a salad bar. So I started the business as a salad bar and then ended up as a low-code automation agency. And most recently, we've been playing around in AI. Thank you for this opportunity, Pierre and Alex and Miguel. I saw your face earlier. It was good to see some familiar names and familiar faces. It definitely makes it easier. I'd love for this session to be as interactive as a webinar can be. So if as we go along, I'm going to try and kind of talk through some of the concepts. I'm hoping that I can delay again long enough. I don't know who of you are working on Claude MCP at the moment, but their server has been down all day. And so another one of those live demo situations. So I'm hoping that by the time we get there, maybe it'll be up. If it's not up, I have a little video. Luckily, I did a demo for Pierre and Alex recently, so I'll take us through that. But it's really, wanted to get through the concept. So please keep on posting questions and things on there. Pierre is here to keep me honest and keep me as non-technical as possible. But if there are technical questions, I love to be tested. So please, any questions would be welcomed. Maybe a relevant part of my background. Pierre, ready to get stuck in?
Sorry?
Are we good to get stuck in?
We're good. Yeah. Good to go.
Yeah. Relevant part of my background is that I'm a trained industrial engineer. I actually don't have a computer science or development or coding background. As mentioned, I stumbled into this space via the salad bar back door. And so I come at this from a very interesting angle, right? I come at this from a consulting background. Before I started a salad bar, I was a management consultant and focused on process improvement. And so come at all of these system developments from a process, policy, procedure. SOPs were my day job for longest time. So I come at it from this angle. And what I'd like to show you is how I maybe start with the end in mind, is how I, again, stumbled into using GitHub as a place to store basically procedures and processes and company knowledge. And then through Claude's MCP, and we can get into explaining what the MCP is, maybe for those on the call that don't know what that might be. But through Claude's MCP, running full workflows that then leverage all of this company knowledge as needed, as decided by the AI tool in different scenarios. So that's kind of the end objective. I want to show you why it's important, how it helps, how we've gone about it, and how it actually works. And Pierre, I'm going to ignore the comments. Will you let me know if there's anything I need to respond to?
Otherwise, I keep an eye. I keep an eye. I will keep an eye on the chat, and if there's questions, I will interrupt amazing. You or ask you the question after. Awesome.
So I guess as many people in the room, I started using Claude, wanting to do all of the things. Found that context by giving it inside my prompt, giving it context. So, for instance, replying to an email, I found that if Claude knew who the client was, what work I was doing with them, what the tone of voice is that I want to use, what even the email that I'm responding to, I found that their responses were accurate, more accurate and more useful. And then I found myself constantly copying and pasting. I actually had a Google Doc that I ran through that I constantly was copying and pasting prompts from and context snippets, who Pretty Simple is, who my client is, who the client is that I'm speaking to. Constantly copying that back and forth into the Claude window, into the into the LLM to get answers. I then started using the projects, so Claude projects, in order to store that in there, but still kept on having my context. So the context kept on changing, right? So what I was doing for the client and what I was responding to and what I was doing kept on changing. So I found myself constantly editing. So now I wasn't just copying and pasting. I was constantly editing these prompts and these snippets back and forth into the tool. I was finding that I was losing track of the versions of the different prompts and the different context snippets that I was using to do. I'm not very, I guess in my nature, not very organized. So I ended up having all of these files all over my desktop in between all of the other things, and then not remembering which version or which one was the relevant one to use in that space. And that's how I kind of ended up looking for tools that can version control and that can connect directly into Claude. And that's how kind of this process started. Let me jump into, let me show you what the repo, what the concept is that I'm talking about. I'm going to try and explain.
Can you share your screen, Cor?
I'm going to share my screen. Otherwise, I'm going to just talk to to myself. Oh, wrong button.
Awesome.
You start with the
All right. So what are we looking at, Cor?
So this is GitHub. It's a repo in GitHub. It might look slightly different. It will look familiar to those that are into coding, but it might look slightly different in the fact that these are basically a selection of markdown files. There's no CSS or JavaScript or any code in there. It's all just a selection of markdown files, storing it in there. I've just set up a demo version of it. And so you'll see inside this demo, I actually have a couple of folders. There's prompts, which we'll get to. There's, in this case, the company that we're talking to. So the fictional company that we're working with is TechFlow Solutions. As part of TechFlow, they have clients. There's some management files in there. There's some research that we've done in certain things. And then these are just kind of meta files that I'm using for the presentation. So basically, these representing almost a subset of business knowledge that you would have, that you wouldn't traditionally have in GitHub, but that you would potentially find value by having your AI reference these as you do different things. Again, the main reason for using GitHub in this situation is its ability to do version control. So I'm actually using, please again, help me if I need to explain or go deeper into some of these. I'm using its ability to do branches and pull requests in order to update the documentation. So again, in this context, in what I give the AI, what I want to make sure is that what I give it to reference is actually clean. Almost if you take the analogy of a pool, is that the water that I make available for Claude to play in is actually clean and stays clean.
Maybe
and so go ahead.
One second, just to make sure it's clear for everybody. So basically, GitHub usually is used to store text files, which are basically the code that you're using for a software. And in your case, instead of having files of code, you have files of knowledge. Basically, you have structures, different information about the company with which you're working. In that case, it's a fictional company, the clients they have, some information about the management. And then I see, for example, meetings. So apparently, like, you almost have a little CRM in there. You have stored some information about the work you do with the customer. And one of the reasons that you were using GitHub is A, because you can store information there, and B, you can do version control. So version control is basically you can have a specific version of the knowledge that you have in there. And if you want to do modification, you basically need to do a request to modify something, and then you can see in the history, okay, what changes have been done. You can keep track of what are the evolution of that content. So basically, you are treating your knowledge just like a developer is treating their code base.
Exactly, and I actually found myself leveraging a lot of so if you think about code, like developers have developed these amazing workflows and procedures of keeping a single source of truth that's the live version on there, allowing many people to collaborate on that same part, taking that through various workflows and procedures and processes, and then when they're ready, make sure that there's a clean pool or the app or the solution that we work with, right? So it's exactly as just now what I'm doing is I'm abusing that capability to store a single source of truth of company knowledge. So in this case, it's around clients. So it's very CRM. So the example that I'm using in this case is very CRM focused or customer relationship focused. But really, the idea is that you can store absolutely everything and absolutely anything in here to make that available as context when you do a prompt in there.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, summarizing. And then inside here, so the AI prompts bit, which we'll allude to, is where I've started storing. So that original list that I had on the side that I was constantly kind of storing back in there, I actually found that I can actually write these also as knowledge into the base. So instead of keeping a separate prompt and copying and pasting it across, I'm actually have a almost a systems folder in here that then starts storing some of these prompts in there. And then these prompts can actually, so this also allows you to do, I mean, this is a pretty basic prompt in terms of what it could do, but it's already a very elaborate in terms of what you would traditionally type into an LLM to perform a certain action.
Okay, so you have your knowledge, you have some prompts. Now, how do you use this?
Let me get to the dessert. Let me show you. I'm going to do a web-based version. I'm pretty sure that the MCP server is not back up. Let me run a test in the background just to check, and then if it does work, then we're going to have, then it's going to be.
And when you do this, you are basically leveraging the built-in integration between Claude and GitHub, correct?
Right, but so there's two, actually incorrect. There's two types of integrations here, right? So there's the built-in integration with GitHub, which I will now use. I'll show you because the MCP isn't working. And then the second one is actually the MCP connection, that you use that can, so the difference is, from my experience, the built-in integration can't write to GitHub and actually has quite limited API access to there, versus the MCP action has 28 different API endpoints that that's been coded into it, and so is significantly more powerful through this. So this I just want to test this again. So basically, to test the connection, I'm just letting it use the repo to see if it's working. While that runs in the background, let me show you. So inside the demo, I've just stored a basic prompt here that I could use. So for the first one, I'm just going to kind of simulate what it would look like to load an email from a client as context. So this is just a pre-prepared prompt. I'll talk you through it in a second, that I've done just for the tool. In this case, I'm using a Claude project. The reason I do that, so inside the project, I can actually give it the main context. So just give it an idea of the company that I'm working with, the repository, which is basically the filing system on GitHub that I'm working with, and I'm using a specific branch in this case. And then some of the specific prompts that I'm using or wanted to actually leverage in this this prompt. So because this is the web-based version, it's not going to have access to the MCP. So in this case, I am going to use the GitHub internal connection, and I'm going to, so you'll see that there is the entire repo is listed inside there. I actually just want to make sure that it uses the branch that I'm using. So branches, maybe just as an explanation. Sorry, this is so branches are GitHub's way of using, so allowing you to edit the data without making your main pool dirty, right? So you can actually take an exact copy of it, of all of your data, and then have that separately so that when the AI starts interacting with this, so remember, the ultimate objective is actually to allow the AI to write to the GitHub repo automatically, even make it changes and amend certain of these files, right? That's what, and the MCP allows us to do this. And so while doing this on a different branch keeps your original data safe, so it keeps it from changing your policies and taking over your company completely, allows it to kind of run it on a separate repo. So in this case, I've already set up branch. Just wanted to use the branch. So you'll see there's the exact copy. So in this case, because this repo is still relatively small, I can actually load the entire repo into context. So I'm taking all of that files that's already there in there. And then this is where the prompting comes in. So I'm taking the prompt that I copied. So basically it says, so process this new business lead for TechFlow Solutions using the GitHub tool and provide the output as an artifact. So normally what I would do is I would actually let it write the new file onto the repo directly through the MCP, because I don't have access to the MCP. I'm just going to show us what the result would look like into the MCP. And basically what I'm giving it is literally just a demo email from Sarah Martinez, kind of a new lead request basically that has come in, right? So I'm taking the email, I'm giving it a one-liner prompt, process this new business lead for TechFlow Solutions. And I'm then letting it run. So basically off the back of knowing what repo we're working with, having the AI prompts in there and having the wider business context, it will now process. It's now asking me to create a Canva. So this is where you get to if you not sure why it's wanting to create a Canva image.
And at the beginning, your prompt is relatively simple. Is this because actually you have defined how you are processing a lead inside of the repository?
That's right. That's so inside the repo, under AI prompts, there's a universal content processor. Inside this content processor, there is this prompt in the middle would say you're processing content for a system, the prerequisite, load the behavioral intelligence patterns, put the content inside there, and then follow this workflow. So it'll go start with phase 1, do that, phase 2, do all of these steps, phase 3, do all of these steps. So whenever you give it content, it will actually follow this prompt step by step with the content that you've generated. So in this case, I'm using a universal content processor. So you'll see I'll give it some other data at some point, but it actually decides how to then process that into the system, where to go store it based on the context that is given in there. It follows. So because this is loaded as context and not as knowledge, it will always be included as part of the prompt. And so Claude tends to follow this very closely. It's not a RAG where you hope that it will fetch the right prompt and it will fetch the right data as part of that, and that hallucinate. It actually becomes much closer part of your instruction that you give Claude, and it follows these points. So you're getting very consistent responses, as consistent as you instructed, basically in the prompt. Let's see the answer. There we go. So you'll see that it's already in there. It's just like there's a safety first processing, behavioral intelligence applied. It's looked at the structure that it's wanted. It's followed that prompt exactly, and it's given us an output that kind of is required by the prompt as it is stored in GitHub. Now, again, if the MCP was working, it would actually create this file into the right folder as a new client. So it will create the new folder on the GitHub repository. It will store this file, and it actually has the ability to not only store the file, it will also update related files. So as you start building these related contexts, it would start kind of updating other files. So you have a main client index. If you build that into your prompt, it will actually go and update that index as part of this workflow in the MCP. So not only creates the files, but it also updates the files as it goes along.
Okay.
and very much these recipes that you build become real assets, right? So if you can build that as simple or as complex as you want, you can build at this. So the guardrails and the things that you build into that. So for instance, you'll see in this case, I've asked it not to hallucinate. So it will, if you don't tell it not to do something, it will run wild, as the LLMs do, right? So one of the areas in my prompt is to say, do not make any assumptions. I repeat, do not make assumptions. And if you even think about making assumptions, don't, right? And then add these placeholders inside here instead of making assumptions to that, right? So it's actually it actually follows the guardrails. It's quite disciplined in following that throughout. So you'll see that even though there's the placeholder next to it, it would leave it won't make assumptions around it.
Okay, and so what do we have generated here?
Sorry, say again.
So, and here what we have is basically it has processed the email from the customer, and what's the output of that? So what do you do once you have this?
So now it would have stored. So now it has this email has become part of your knowledge base, right? So this interaction with your client is part there. So in the future, if you were to load this, again, this would be created onto that client. So a new client would be created in there. Now that is context of that client relationship. So in the future, if I get another email, I can process that in there. Or if I now need to generate a proposal, I can actually leverage all of these emails and all of these conversations in there. So as a minimum, you can use the source documents that are there and link that into as context into your conversations or into the LLM answer processing that it's added in there.
We have a question in the chat, Cor. Do you have some example of misbehaviors that the MCP did when you were using it before you started putting all your guardrails?
Many. It really likes, so one of the things that annoys me, it really likes to come up with benefits and impact, for instance, with certain projects and things. So if you ask anything related, it'll gladly tell you that it'll bring a 400% ROI in 2 months at half the cost. That's completely irrelevant. And that's the kind of dirty water that's super dangerous, right? If you start adding that in these context prompts, where then you want to send an email to the client, and in this client it starts referencing functions and features that it's added to the system, or promises that you've made that you've never made, right? So there's definitely a very big human in the loop part of this, right? So that's where the version control and the branching comes in, is to really make sure that the water that goes into the repository stays clean. Interesting though, the response is while you can edit the data in that specific one, what I found really helpful is then to go and add the guardrails into the templates, right? As opposed to, so fix it on that run, don't make these assumptions, and then go into the prompt and say, I've seen these. And in fact, this is where it's really powerful. I don't actually edit the prompt. I go and say, use the same approach where, so we can probably look at that. So let's say, so let me load the context again. And I can say that I got serious, check my spelling, hallucinations. Luckily it doesn't mind my spelling. Nations in the general, what was called universal prompt, universal content processor. So I can add that in there. Please provide a version that has even stronger guardrails and provides here, grounding instructions. So even in terms of updating these, like I can actually use the system to update itself. Claude would know, and it'll come back with a suggestion of how to write. So even these prompts, the universal content generator, I went and said, hey, I get these kind of emails, I get these kind of interactions with the client. This is a transcript from a call. Please help me write this is an example of the files that I want to push in there, or this is the standard metadata structure. I don't know why Canva's getting involved, all of the things. And write a prompt that will extract the right data in the right format for that. So you can use the system to actually generate those prompts. Even the file structure, right? So even this file structure was generated through, I need to start organizing my files. These are the kind of files that I want to store, create a framework where I can store these files into. Right? So it's really this interaction with the MCP through Claude that starts organically kind of growing this thing into the different areas.
And can you explain a bit, what's the value that this brings you on a day-to-day? So are you mostly using that to structure project, communication with customers? Like, to which extent do you use the system?
I respond, so I'm loading all of the leads, for instance, all of our leads and stuff goes into this, all of our client conversations, even requests that's coming from clients, internal policies. So I don't generate, so I've generated probably the last 3 or 4 proposals just directly from this, using the context of, so in our version of this, we have our rate cards, we have our offerings, we have how we've structured, we have the knowledge of all of the projects that we've done before and the prices and the cost that we've done with them. So I'm using all of those contexts to help me use AI to help me come up with better responses to that, right? Even I'm finding it super useful. It's actually quicker for me to just connect the context of a client and then ask the client, so connect the client. I can show you an example of how I would do that and say, help me respond to this email by just having the context of the other conversations that I've had with this client added to that. It makes the responses, I'm finding myself having to tweak the emails significantly less. And it's even significantly better than previously. I would have a style guide prompt, right? Or style guide that I would say, like, this is what I sound like, so help me write the email. It would still always end up not having the right context in terms of who this client is and kind of what we're doing for them and the conversations we've had before and kind of the relationship that we have. And so doing all of this will actually, it brings that into context and makes those responses significantly better.
Yes.
So
actually, a question on that, because that's a question we have in the chat, is, do you ever run into some limits of MCP calls or the Claude tokens when you use that approach?
So yes, and then what's interesting is, so that's kind of two parts that we haven't spoken about. So one, the MCP's ability to, so which the integration doesn't do, the MCP's ability to chain prompts, right? So I can actually, and in fact, I use it to use the MCP to refactor prompts into subcategories and link them together with cross references. Right. So instead of so this one has the universal content extractor prompt. That prompt can actually, as you get different content types and things, can get actually quite significantly and use a significant amount of your context window already just at the loading part. But what I can then do, and what I've done is then ask Claude to refactor that prompt into different ones. And then what it does, you'll have almost an index at the front that says this is the main prompt. If it is an email from a client, go look up that file and follow that prompt. If it is a transcript, follow this. So refactoring is one option. Indexing, it's really powerful in terms of including indexing into your prompt so that it only fetches the right parts, the relevant parts in there, and kind of architecting that to get the right prompts, the right snippets or the right sections or right files to make part of the context, depending on the question that you're needing to do. But again, it's not you selecting files hoping that it's the right one. you actually again train the model. It's the ask Claude to set up those relationships and things in that.
Okay.
Maybe it's a good time to so the other one. So one is the linking of the different concepts,
Yep.
right? And the other one is the system's ability to learn from the interactions, right? So what I've done is I would actually go at the end of the thread, have a file that is user learning or use a system learning on the as a standard prompt that it references, and I would go look at this thread, look at the file, the learnings file that I have, and then look at this thread and see if there are new interactions or new ways that I've used and interacted with you that you can learn from this thread and update that file. Or are there certain of the behavior on the file that needs to be changed and doing all of that? So just that system learning that it then makes part of the standard exponentially improve the responses that we were getting from this, because it's actually learning, don't do that, don't use the name at the front, or actually we like bullet points or structure. These are silly examples of this, but it actually, from your natural interaction with Claude in terms of shaping and guiding this response, it's learning how to improve this every time. So the responses get more and more accurate over time, to the point where our learning file at the moment is just over 100 snippets of behavior that it's picked up in terms of how we interact with Claude in different situations and different contexts.
Okay.
And that's actually super valuable or powerful in picking that up.
Yeah. And we have another question, like, what are the benefits to using this approach as opposed to Claude Code? Have you considered using Claude Code for what you do?
I have. I come at this from a business and a process perspective, right? So it's the CLI and all of that is still quite intimidating even for me.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see using this. And then the benefit with this is I'm capped at the $20 a month fee.
True.
Right. So the other side with the Claude Code and starting to run into open token spaces and things like that, I can see it running into significant processing, right? So especially if you start opening up those windows. I am super keen to start playing with, like it's a max plan at $120, right? Or $100 a month that you need to go into, and then the CLI connection. So I'm super keen to see this thing unleashed, or see Claude Code unleashed on this, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay, fair enough.
I have used, what's interesting, I have in some cases used Copilot, GitHub Copilot to adjust certain things. So even in your, if you go to edit and you want to edit or make minor adjustments or things like that, I have actually had success in using Copilot to do some of those adjustments, which has been super useful. So that's kind of, and then I do, which is maybe that's step between the CLI with Claude. I do use VS Code, so I have a local version of this on my, and I would actually review and edit some of these files with VS Code on my local machine. So even using, like, I was even considering using Cursor or Windsurf in terms of seeing what they would do in this space where it's not actual code and just documentation.
Interesting. And what brought you to trying this? Is it mostly that these tools are the ones that have the most advanced use case because engineers are engineers and they are building first, their engineering use case, or did you see, okay, code is text and knowledge is text, so we're gonna use the same tools? What was your approach?
I wish it was that smart. I was looking for a reliable way of running versions, right? Google Docs sucks at it. Notion is horrendous at it. I was like, it was kept on changing my Google Doc that I didn't want to change. That don't change that part. I want to have control over what you should change. And so it was really versioning initially that pushed me to this. We are using quite extensively. So through the GitHub MCP, you can also run issues, right? So and then you can actually run those. So inside your, so for instance, on our instance, which unfortunately I can't, like there's just too much sensitive information that would spill out. So I had to spin up a demo. But the main branch is protected, so you can use. So this is going into the advanced features of GitHub, right? So our main branch is protected. You have to create a separate branch. It makes the edits on there and then creates a pull request in order to merge it back to the main branch. All of that's automated. All of that's built into the prompts and is automated through this process. So it's not me manually going to create a branch and doing all of that. It's kind of a section at the top of the prompt that then makes these different changes at the top.
And so in the end, Claude is Claude helped you create the repository, design it for better AI use and efficiency, and then it takes information from you to write into the repository, and then it reads the repository, and then it starts doing your job by answering emails and drafting documents from your knowledge.
Yeah, even so in our, so yes, all of those things, but even in our case, right, our projects are low-code tools. So I've got Airtable connected. I'm pulling in the schema from our clients into this, right?
So you don't work. You don't do anything anymore.
I'm reviewing Claude all day. I'm waiting for it to finish the process and then go in there. But just to your point, that it isn't just about emails, right? It isn't just about writing better proposals. So I have the client's actual Airtable schemas. I have the blueprints of their make scenarios and all of that into that file. So when a client comes back and says, for instance, this email is not going out as part of our system, I can actually ask Claude, and it'll generate the documentation, or it'll find the problem in terms of the schema and where the probable issues are. So it really is. I am really like going full out at putting absolutely everything into this. I think the other big part that we haven't spoken about in terms of another, it is on here. I must really show you. So let me show you just one example of using where this is. So let me just exit this. So for instance, one of the things that I want to do is do a risk analysis across this business, right? So now, because I have all of this stuff, so one of the things that I found AI really good at is showing me what I don't know that I don't know. Right. So asking very wide open questions across my knowledge base, and then asking it to look at this and tell me what I don't know. So one of those areas is where are the risks in my business? Right. So I can actually go perform a comprehensive business risk analysis and scoring on probability, severity, and cost mitigation. Right. So that's the prompt. So if I go to, let me just go back to this. So again, loading the from GitHub. I'm just going to again load. So this you won't be able to do as your repository gets bigger, but I'm literally just perform the comprehensive business risk analysis. Syncing that up. So the other thing is look at my lead pipeline and tell me the prioritized opportunities or missed opportunities. Look at the research. So one of the things that I'm doing is I'm doing research with GPT or with Claude around market opportunities or AI, whatever the thing is, putting that as context in here and then saying, based on market movements and my clients, where are the opportunities in order to go and present all of those things? Kind of the don't know that I don't know. I really don't know what's going on with camera. I'll switch it off in the next one.
And that's something that you would run for your company or for your customers' company?
Even for the customer, right? I can look at this, like generating user documents, generating process documentation off the back of adding the different things, risk, opportunity, whatever. One of the other things that I've started doing. So because I'm adding emails into this, I added a part at the bottom of my prompt to say, so one of the things that I have for each of the, so for instance, at a client level, so this is so there's a main under each client, there's a client profile or even a README file for that client. Sorry, this is the main. Under alpha, there's a client profile, right? So I can actually just link this specific file into where I've linked that. So if I'm interacting with this client, this becomes kind of the main index or context file for this client. One of the things that I've started doing on there is, for instance, the stakeholders and the clients, I'm updating a profile of that client in there based on their communication style, for instance. So if this client likes to communicate, like wants to know how my kids are and do all of these things, I'm kind of capturing that they're an amiable and likes that way of communicating. And I've actually started drafting my emails based on how the client or the lead likes to interact. So if they're more, show me the numbers, it actually adjusts the emails and the communications around that. And even from a proposal perspective, let me just show you this. So there's a categorized risk assessment, right, based on the information that's in there that I can then work on. And even if it shows me one thing that I didn't know, it could be valuable. And again, as this becomes more populated, it becomes more valuable.
And the population, how much of how much of the repository is you adding data, and how much is it more you interacting with Claude, and eventually you ask it to just add that information in there at the end of the conversation?
At the moment, it's still quite intensive in terms of me adding it in there. I can definitely see how this is automated at some point. So I think two opportunities. One is either automating the capturing into GitHub, but I actually, one of the things that I'm actively looking into is so I can actually, as I'm directing the MCP, so Claude, to another file inside my repo, I can actually direct it to the HubSpot URL, right? Or the Airtable record, or the, right? So I can actually start coding those multi-platform links into these files, so that if I have existing tools through their MCP, it can go and fetch the stuff in there, in those different applications in there. So it doesn't need to be all on here. That's maybe from a processing perspective. It's just working again. So it becomes this architecture, knowledge architecture that you build out and maintain.
And do you have maybe, speaking of architecture, do you have a representation of how the repository is structured, or what are the main functionality of that construct that makes it work?
I did. This was also, so what I did was, I think I asked Claude to look at my repository, right, and come up with a visualization of what this could look like. And so I said, so the first part is kind of 4 main areas. So again, this was generated by Claude from my repository, which was actually quite chuffed with. So it's basically processes, knowledge, relationships, and intelligence, and then different components that are part of that. So part of the knowledge is client profiles, market research, project history. So, and again, Claude kept on expanding these nodes itself, right? So I started the prompt with, I have all of this knowledge that I want to, how do you suggest I structure it? And it suggested these 4 pillars, and then it started expanding. And the value really is in all of these links, cross references that exist there. Where as this grows, it makes these hops, and I'll show you, there's another simulation just of how these hops work. But that last really powerful one is where it starts inferring learnings across these. So based off of how we interact and what we've done, it has these independent nodes where, in myself, I could say that a client profile is linked to that project that we're doing, or that way that we're doing projects. But actually, it having this ability to look across, using its LLM magic and vectorizing and all of that, it can see relationships that I would never ever be able to see out of myself. but then hard coding that as learnings to be followed every time that it follows that scenario. So not expecting it to learn per scenario, it's actually coding these learnings into the different places. So I have a practical example of kind of what that thinking would look like. So traditional, so again, all credit to Claude. So traditionally, if you would just do a context, a prompt into there with no context around how should I handle a lead with global manufacturing corp lead, it'll say the response might be you should respond promptly with your service offering, schedule discovery call, and provide relevant case studies. So that would, where if you start adding some context, so that if that's the context, then you then give it to it, starts hopping, so it follows these prompts across, and it starts enriching the prompt with different information, and you end up with a much richer answer at the bottom. So competitive advantage, systematic everything code thinking, integrated business intelligence platforms, safety frameworks preventing. So now it's actually learned from all of these different things. And then if you take that to the extreme, where learning becomes part of this. Silly. So now there's learning part of this. You run that same flow, and it follows through all of it. The fact that it then adds these independent learnings, which normally not even in your own thinking would have been part of the context of developing a proposal, for instance, but you have this intelligence that you've picked up independently using LLM, which then becomes part of your answer.
A quick question, Cor, from the chat. Is it only you interacting with this right now, or do you also find a way for clients to interact with it?
So it's interesting that you say that. So one of the main objectives with this is that I got to that nasty spot where I became the only reference in our business in terms of client work and what we were doing. So one of the main objectives with this was to build away from myself and very actively and aggressively so. So my team has started interacting with us. So if you think of our marketing team, or even our customer support team, or like all of the information is in there. So the marketing team can see what are the projects we're doing, what do we have scope, what the leads are that's coming in, what the lead success, all of that is in there. And even so, we were talking about risk assessment earlier, but coming up with content ideas based off of the leads that are coming in and the things that we're doing, right? Or based off the risks. So the marketing team having access to this, customer support having access to the projects and the documentation, all of that stuff. So internally, yes, I've not given the client access to this. What I have started doing is for some of the clients, I've started developing this for themselves.
Okay.
So that they have their own version of this.
Okay. Did you try also to combine that with any form of RAG, or are you just not a big RAG fan?
I've built my own RAG so what I've found with research, it needs the chunks rather than loading. So if I have a 50-page research, or if I'm pushing a lot of information, like in that, so the difference with the context and the RAG side is I wanted to absolutely follow the context, right? So that's the loading into the like it's not a nice to have. The RAG thing is I'm not so concerned that it finds all of the relevant information and only the relevant information. So I do have some RAG integrated in my version as a super base integration that I've built.
Okay, super interesting. How often are you using this? Like, do you spend your time only doing this now?
All day.
Yeah.
At the moment, yeah. Even the interactions, like I'm finding, maybe it's I'm Afrikaans first language, so there might be the English second language. I'm just finding it so much valuable in terms of the email, for instance, communication that's generated, LinkedIn posts that's generated, like any communication or anything that comes out of this, even proposals or response to leads or even contracts, employees, and leave application, like all of that stuff, having the policies and all of that in there. I'm finding, I guess there's a novelty factor to it, because I'm finding the response is super interesting, and I'm constantly blown away about how good it is. And so I'm spending a tremendous amount of time. So when it is off for the entire day, I don't know what to do with myself.
Do you have some more examples of practical ways the system has helped you and your team? Like, can you give? Because I think we gave a good overview of how you've built it, but can you give as many examples as possible of how you use it and what are the different ways that you use that, and it clearly saves times?
So one of the recent, and I'm still busy with it, is so just as a client, because I've documented the client project as we go along.
Yeah.
It's interesting. In 10 years, I probably count on two hands how many clients were willing to pay for documentation after a project. They're just never willing to do it. And now it's actually become a super powerful tool. So I can actually, the documentation that I'm able to create off the back of this is comprehensive, is accurate, and so and it saved me a significant amount of time, where it's single. I want to do it anyway for myself, and I can actually monetize it and kind of sell it at a price that clients are willing to pay for it. So documentation. I mentioned proposals. I mentioned marketing. One of the things I'm excited about is connecting the Zero MCP to this and doing expense tracking and analysis for myself in terms of software licenses, HR. I mean, it's slightly related. We've been using e-signatures, for instance, as a contracting tool since right at the beginning. It was amazing. They've got a very comprehensive MCP. So I've set up the templates, my contract templates, in master service agreements and all of that inside GitHub. And I literally go send client MSA, and it fetches the template in Thord. It populates the details in there and sends off the e-signature in there. So contracting, I've even done contracting with vendors. Pierre, you were the recipient of one of the contracts that went out rogue. Yes. So there's definitely learning in it. I was super happy that it was a safe one. Planning, we do. So I've actually moved my own internal project management into a GitHub project, because I can now, it has the context, so I can say I want to take the Zero MCP connection, right? I can say I want to create a Zero MCP connection to track expenses. It has the full context of our company, and so it builds this really rich kind of task on in the GitHub project, to the point where I've actually one of the tasks, I can't remember which one it was, but I remember being blown away. I actually just asked it to complete the task, and it completed the task, right? It generated the task, and it did it so well. And I read through the task, and I'm like, I could probably just ask it, and I just said, go complete the task. It was about shifting and moving things around, and it actually executed that accordingly.
And also you've moved to GitHub project and issues for managing all your workflows, or not yet?
Not all of them yet. I think there are still places for discrete flows. I am finding it. I mean, some of these workflows, because I can get Claude to just generate them, my use of some of the other more popular platforms have decreased significantly.
I see.
Which has been interesting.
We're almost out of time. Cor, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you wanted to show today?
I'm keen if there are more questions, or if people are. I don't think there's anything more from.
I think there's one question maybe where I think how do you make sure that the LLM does not miss any context when prompting? Because you've shown that you basically just give a short prompt, and then Claude goes and finds the right prompt, and basically goes and finds the right series of prompts to just constitute its it's almost prompting itself. You just give it a map, say, okay, this is what I want, and there's somewhere a map that tells you when I say I want this is actually what I mean. How do you make sure that one piece of the puzzle doesn't get missed?
So inside the prompts, you can have validations, right? I mean, I haven't. So what I've been doing, for instance, with pull requests, I'm checking that it has a in the metadata, it has a AI claim at the top there to know that it's actually fetched the metadata structure, right? So you can actually build these little checkpoints into that. And then, so for instance, in our version of this, it creates a branch, it makes the changes, it then creates a pull request, and part of that pull request in GitHub's, and again, I'm still very kind of new at this and learning this, it runs a set of automations inside GitHub to check that, and you can control those. In fact, Claude generates those for you to check that it has placeholders, it has the right metadata structure, it has all of these things. So if there are critical prompts, you can actually seed that prompt with make sure to put the stamp on the file so that I know that you saw these prompts. One of them that I'm doing is just the AI assumptions one, the AI safety thing. Like because I found that it goes crazy very quickly. I've had to redo the thing because it ended up changing some of the files and some of the things, and I couldn't find it.
And I guess that this pull request, maybe you should explain a little bit more, because this is the next question, which is, do you have some kind of code review process to get the humans in the loop? So basically, when you're using that, and when you ask Claude to make a modification to your repository, what it does, it doesn't go and modify the main branch. It makes a suggestion of basically creating a new version. And the same way that like it is initially, it's meant for coding. So when you look at the pull request, you can accept it or decline it, and it shows you basically, just like when you have a document which is in edit mode, it shows you what has been added, like what are the differences between the main version and the new version that has been requested to be pushed, and then you can approve it. And that's basically your human in the loop process, correct?
Yeah, but it's interesting. Like it does, the MCP does this all for you, right? It creates the new branch, it makes the changes, and it then creates the pull request. And what it does, like what I've by accident managed to, so there's many accidents, but two big ones, right? So it would actually, the pull request that it generates, it's such a comprehensive summary that I actually very seldom go into the actual code changes. Just reading through the summary is actually really cool. So you can read through the pull request summary that it generates, and then you can accept it from there, and you can go in detail if it does. And even at that level, it does the checks for you in the automations, which is valuable, and you can then push the pull request. One of the things that I found super useful is I can actually run in the MCP, I can say, give me a summary of all the activity across in the last week, and it will fetch the pull request from the last week, and it'll summarize that into what are the main changes that happened in the system. Right. So if I want to say what updates did I make for a client in the last week, or where's this client moved to, if I do a status update, internal status update, I can actually see all of that stuff. I've also have a sort of maybe 3 accidents. Claude set up an automation to check the frequency of files. So I get a weekly report generated of which files are going stagnant, which haven't changed in the kind of their recency, right? And it generated that. Another thing, so these learnings, so initially it was generating learnings on how we're interacting with Claude. It started by itself generating suggestions of how we can change the system. And I've actually started taking those suggestions of how we can change the framework and the system, and I've asked it to start generating issues based off of that, so that at some point I can actually work through those suggestions and start implementing that. And those are I think it was actually one of those that I gave it to say, that's a really good idea, just please go and implement it. It followed the issue, did all of the things, created the branch, pull request, and kind of made the changes to the system.
That's a bit frightening, but it's exciting at the same time.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think we are at the time. Very interesting. Thanks a lot, Cor, for sharing all of this. If people have questions on this, where should they reach out to you?
I actually created a little. I can post the link in 2 seconds. I'll post links. Sorry, I had all of these opened up before I had to restart my laptop to get onto the call. I'll post a link to a little takeaway just in terms of explaining the concept and where. I also am sharing an open version of this repo, this demo version, so you can actually just, as a seed into doing this for yourself, you can replicate the repo if you like. And then I've started, I'm sharing this openly, like, so I've started a open repo. So if anybody has any ideas and anything's on there, so that we can start collaborating if people are keen. So
is this the knowledge work open source project starting right now, Cor?
This is the absolutely everything is code. So I'm calling it absolutely everything is code. And there's an open repo. So the idea is that there's an opportunity to collaborate on, and I will be sharing on there some of the lessons in terms of the safeguards and things that we've produced on there. So let me just find that link real quick. If I was smart, I would have asked Claude for it.
We're dropping it into the chat. If we have any questions, now is the right moment. Okay, there it is. So people go there, click on this, and then they put their email, and then they will get access to your basically to a summary of this of what you showed today. Correct?
That's right. Yeah. That's correct. Yeah. I promise not to bug you with your email. I won't sell your email address.
Awesome. Well, Cor, thanks a lot. It was a pleasure. I hope this was interesting for the others. I really like how you are making use of the coding tools for something else than code. So I find it extremely exciting. I hope other people also take it from here and start building their own system. Thank you very much for being with us, Cor, and looking forward to have you again soon.
Yeah, thank you so much
everybody.
for the opportunity. Yeah. Thanks,
Bye, everyone.
Cheers.